Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew DeSantis.
And I'm Kaylie Shapiro.
And welcome to the road to the Breeders' Cup. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Road to the Breeders' Cup here on NYRA Bets YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in. Kaylie Shapiro and I are going to be walking you through this week's Breeders' Cup win, and you're in races for the Challenge Series. A lot of great racing, and we're getting ready for opening week of Keeneland next week, which is going to feature a lot more of these. We're going to have weekly programs here for the Breeders' Cup to get you ready. But Kaylie, this is an exciting time of year. We're coming down the stretch. We have a pretty good sense of where these Breeders' Cup races are going, but these final preps are going to be really interesting.
Definitely going to be super interesting. And there are some horses that won't have another prep. They've already done their prep, or maybe they just don't have a race in between. Like, for example, Sovereignty, obviously. So we kind of already can tell the big picture going on here. Certainly, if another horse takes a step up in any of these preps, it'll make it a bit more interesting. But I think everyone has a pretty solid grasp on their opinions by this point. I mean, we're cutting it pretty close, coming up to the Breeders' Cup pretty soon. So that's exciting.
Absolutely. No, I mean, by this point, horses have kind of shown you what they are for the most part. Obviously, we'll have to see who actually makes it into the final fields, the draws, etc. But what we're going to be doing is previewing the 5 Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races, 1 at Belmont at Aqueduct and 4 at Santa Anita, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. But before we get to that, listen, we know what people love, and they love lists.
Yes.
They love a good list, and I love a good list as much as anybody.
Me too.
And so we have a top 5 list for our Breeders' Cup Classic, if you want to call it our power rankings, however you want to frame it. But let's start off with that and talk about this year's Breeders' Cup Classic, which is going to be a really star-studded affair. Obviously, Sovereignty is going to be in this race. Last year's Breeders' Cup Classic winner, Sierra Leone is going to be in. The second place horse, Fierceness, is going to be there. The third place horse, Forever Young, is going to be there. It's going to be a really fun race this year. Kaylie, talk a little bit about your top 5 list, and we share a top pick in this one.
Yeah, mine's pretty formful. I mean, if you think about it, I believe Sovereignty is a notch above all the horses in the Classic last year. You can put your opinion in the comments. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with that, and that's fine. We'll see when the time comes. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I think that he's, like I said, a notch above. And then I put Sierra Leone, who I believe is the best horse in the 4-year-old division. That's just my opinion as well. He's certainly been in really good form this year. We saw a lot from him in Saratoga, in the Whitney, and then after that in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. I mean, he ran the best race that day. That horse is a beast. He should have a decent amount of speed, and he's also shown us that he isn't as pace dependent as we once thought he was this summer in Saratoga. So I really like Sierra Leone's options. He's the one horse that I believe could take a crack at Sovereignty. I don't think that he'll be able to beat him. But he's the one horse tactically that could, if you're thinking about maybe how the race is going to play out. Sovereignty has a huge advantage in the way that he's so versatile and athletic, and he can sit just about anywhere in the race.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. One of the things that is so intriguing about whenever you put together a top 5 or a top 10 list is knowing the gap between the positions, if you know what I mean. So a horse might be ranked 4th, but maybe there might be a pretty big gap between 3 and 4, as opposed to the gap between 1, 2, and 3, let's say. And I think that's kind of the case this year. I see the same top 3 as you see. I have a slightly different order. Listen, I think Sovereignty heads and shoulders above everyone else in this current Classic division. I just do. I think he is a great horse. I'm comfortable anointing him as such right now. That's why people get mad. People get mad at when you say this is a great horse, because people have opinions about what great means. And great means something different to every single person. And so to me, he is a great horse because what I have seen him do has been great. When you win the Travers by 10 lengths, when you beat Magnitude by 21 lengths, that tells me that he is a great horse. So I think Sovereignty is that good. Now, the one horse that I think can beat him is in Japan. And you know this. I have a hoodie that says Forever Young on. I love Forever Young. I think he is a spectacular horse. He has yet to run a local prep. He ran a huge race in that Dubai World Cup, a huge race, and came back a little flat in the Saudi Cup and has not run since because of the way the Japanese racing calendar is. He comes back later in the beginning of October. He's going to run his prep race. I think he is just an absolute monster. I would love to see these two on neutral territory over in the Middle East next year. I mean, listen, Sovereignty's always going to have the edge because it's on his territory. It's on his North American turf to some extent, and Forever Young's making the trip over. But I just think Forever Young, man, he's just so good. And I just have so much respect for him and the connections and what he's able to do.
I mean, me too. He's a world traveler. He's a world-class horse, as you say. I mean, Forever Young, we all saw the finish in the Kentucky Derby. It's certainly a standout for me against Sierra Leone and Fierceness. And the horse, and the horse, of course. And the horse always runs honest. I mean, he's going to show up, especially over here in America. To me, I believe there's a big gap between the horse that we have on top compared to everybody else. And my opinion remains the same with Sovereignty versus Forever Young. But boy, am I excited to see these two face off. I love Forever Young as well. And I mean, he makes the race just that much more interesting as well.
He really does. Now, listen, you have Fierceness fourth. I have Fierceness fifth. Listen, he's an excellent horse. But he showed a lot in that Santa Anita or the Pacific Classic, I should say, where he had some trouble at the beginning. Johnny V had him inside behind horses, but he made a really smart move getting him to the lead down the backstretch and really was able to draw from journalism that day. Listen, he's a really tough customer. There is still the question of what do you get from him sometimes, where he can just kind of throw in a little bit of a questionable effort now and again. I do think he is still slightly draw dependent, though certainly last time showed maybe not as much as I thought. And it will obviously I have him fifth. I think he's a very formidable horse, but it's going to be interesting. I do see him as a little bit of a notch below maybe my top three.
I don't agree. I think I see him pretty even with Forever Young and even Sierra Leone. I believe that Fierceness showed us a different dimension last time out. And I think that he's a really tough horse. To me, I mean, the more we keep talking about this race, it's just how it becomes more and more apparent at the site that we're going to see the first weekend of November. I mean, these horses that we're talking about right now, thinking about them facing off, I'm just so excited at the thought of it. And no matter which way you rank them, a lot of them are going to be showing up. And you can see something crazy where we see maybe Sovereignty win by a healthy margin and then, you know, a three-way finish for second. I could see
very
something
similar
like
to the Flightline year where you had Flightline win and then you had Olympiad at a big price come in second. Listen, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And these are horses that are all genuinely turning in great efforts. And one thing that I think is important to remember from last year, they got a suicidal pace. 44 seconds to the half is nuts in a 1.25 mile race. They're not getting that this year. Dermot Sotogake, he's not running in this year's race. Now, I agree with you. Sierra Leone, I don't think is as pace dependent. He doesn't need a nuclear meltdown to happen. But it does help a horse like Sovereignty and Forever Young and Fierceness who can sit closer to a pace when it is more reasonable. And that doesn't mean that it's fast or slow. It's just a reasonable pace.
Completely agree with that. I mean, Sierra Leone, if you think about it, I think that at the time, that suicidal pace helped him so much because he still had a lot of quirks to work out at the time, and he's been able to work them out. So maybe that's why that horse is still able to work out the trips he does and close into paces that aren't suicidal like that. But I think that's a really great point about the fact that when you're thinking about Fierceness and Sovereignty and where they're going to sit, it's really going to help them. They don't want to sit on top of a pace like that. That's for sure.
No, definitely not. Highland Falls is a horse I've always been a big fan of. Godolphin runner who ran a huge race in that Whitney and came back and ran well in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, finished third that day. I just think is a really honest horse and one that I have a feeling is just rounding back into really top form. You have journalism and you know that I've been the biggest supporter of journalism this year. I love journalism. As long as Umberto Rispoli's writing journalism, I don't have him in my top 5. I'm sorry. That's just, I don't understand some of his rides, and I am not necessarily convinced, despite his pedigree, that he wants a 1.25 miles. So I just, I don't know with him. Maybe I've just been so snake bitten with him. I just can't trust him anymore.
To me, I believe that he can get a 1.25 miles and that he can be very effective at a 1.25 miles. I mean, just physically as well as his pedigree. But you're judging based on the form that we've seen him in as of today, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, Highland Falls is in better form. You'd argue he's been running. I mean,
against tougher
We're
competition.
being tough on journalism because, last time he got beat by Fierceness.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that the horse really needed a break. And I think that it's amazing that he was traveling around all those races and that the connections did a great job. Yeah. But I think that we'll see him take a step up off a little bit of rest.
I hope so, because you know how much I love that horse. Yeah. And so I certainly hope so. I was an early supporter of journalism. He was my Derby pick. I despite better choices, he was my Belmont pick. Listen, I finally got him the sovereignty trade around the Jim Dandy. Yeah, no, we didn't need to bring that up at all. But listen, it's going to be a lot of fun. And let's dive into the 5 races that are taking place this weekend that are Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races. And we'll start with the Vosburgh, which is a Challenge Series race for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, going 7 furlongs at Belmont at Aqueduct. This is for 3-year-olds and up. It's a 9-horse field. And you landed on the number 1 horse, Scotland, for trainer Belmont. This is a horse you and I have always both been big fans of in this particular spot. And he's one who just ran a really good race in that Forgo at a decent price, just losing to Bookham Dano by a length, but he was coming late.
I was very happy with that exactly that day. That's for sure. I had Bookham Dano singled, but to see Scotland run the way that he did was very impressive. I mean, second to Bookham Dano, who's, I believe, is a great horse. When you say the word great, I use that word for him. And I thought that Scotland put up a pretty good fight up against him last time out. That was second off a layoff. Now third start off a layoff. I mean, look at Belmont stats.
Yeah. No, they're very impressive.
Put it there, and the horse is going to take a step up, I believe. I think he's just rounding into form, and he's going to have him ready to go just at the right time to qualify to the race that he wants this horse to peak at.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, the bullet work would certainly indicate that he's ready to go. I think the biggest concern I have is just that inside post draw for a horse that likes to come from off the pace. I worry about just working out the right trip. Junior Alvarado, obviously very, very talented at being able to do this, knows this horse very, very well. I like Scotland quite a bit. Did finish second in last year's Vosburgh to Mufasa, who was a horse I really liked a lot back then. And so, listen, he's my second choice. I have no complaints about a horse like Scotland. He's definitely going to be on all of my late pick 5 tickets. That's for sure. I'm not excluding him by any stretch.
And he certainly should be. I mean, Belmont, look at his numbers in the Vosburgh historically. In the last 5 years, he's won with Elite Power, Cody's Wish. Yeah. I mean, this race, he always has a live horse. And
they might rename it the Mont Stakes. I don't know. He wins a couple more of these.
But to be honest, with this race, I started off by eliminating a lot of horses. I mean, if you look at the field in total, that's a good way to start, I believe, with this race. Certainly taking dynamics into account after the fact and the way that maybe those horses that aren't win contenders can play a role in the race. But I crossed out at least 5 right off the bat, at least about who I wanted on top, and that helped me out here.
Yeah, no, I think that from a handicapping standpoint, that is kind of what you should do. I think the first thing you always try to do is go as the favorite vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. And then after that, you do start going, I just don't see it for this horse. I just don't see it for that horse. And then you see what you have left over and you see, can we get creative with some of these horses, that sort of thing. I am going to get a little creative with a horse, Patriot Spirit for trainer Michael Campbell. This one's coming off a stakes win last time out of Colonial Downs, going 7 furlongs, 2 for 3 winning at this distance. What I like about Patriot Spirit is he's got good speed. The only horse who's outside in this race is Crazy Mason, who's a deep closer. So he's the predominant outside speed, which is kind of what I like to see in these sprints, because it allows for Javier Castellano to be able to play the break, see who's going on the inside. I like the fact he can win a couple different ways. He's one up on the lead. He's one coming from a little off the pace. So he can run a few different ways. He can run well off Lasix. This is a horse that won the Illinois Derby going 1 1/8. But I think the 7 furlongs is kind of where he's at his best. And you look at those last 4 efforts. Listen, he finished second by a neck to a horse we both love, the Wine Steward, in the 5th season. Comes back in the Essex handicap, going to the 1 1/8. I think a little too long for him against that level of company. Cuts back to the 1-turn mile at Churchill on a wet track and loses to a nice horse in the form of Liberal Arts, but only by 3/4 of a length, and then comes and blows out the field at Colonial. He's in good form. His best is good enough to potentially win. That 96 buyer a couple times that he's run could win this race. I'm going to take a shot with him up top. But obviously Scotland's my second choice and kind of a horse that I think you can't get around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this horse certainly one that's good to take a shot with because he's never really run a bad race, certainly not as of late. I just thought that this is going to be a big class test for him. I mean, we're talking about the Wine Steward and Liberal Arts.
Yeah.
Whereas with Scotland, we're talking about Bookham Dano.
100%.
And I think Scotland's actually getting a little bit of relief here. Whereas
certainly from the last race,
But I believe that your horse can win tactically.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. And now you have a horse that you like quite a bit, who is a New York bred, Doc Sullivan, who's for a trainer we both have a lot of respect for, Johnny Ortiz. And this horse ran a nice race in the 4-go as well, finished 4th that day and made up a lot of ground as well. And like I said, it probably is going to be a little bit of a price. Joel Rosario now up on the mount.
Yeah, I think that Crazy Mason, who I believe is going to work out a really nice trip here with the speed that we have on paper. But I tried to put at least what I believe will be a little bit of a price in between these two, because I imagine that they're going to be first and second choice, right? Scotland and Crazy Mason maybe. But to me, Doc Sullivan, I mean, John Ortiz, I believe in him as a trainer. I think that he's going to be able to move this horse up. I mean, if you look at just his first start with the horse in the grade 1, ran 4th against a really good field that day. And, you know, Crazy Mason and Scotland were the only 2 horses in here that beat him. And I believe that this horse, you know, maybe third off the layoff is going to be able to round into form a little bit as well.
Absolutely.
And take a step up. He's always an honest horse and shows up. So I'm interested to see what John Ortiz has in mind and what he does with this horse as well.
Yeah, no, I like him a lot in this spot. Johnny Ortiz, obviously, like we both said, trainer we both like a lot. I think could run really well in this spot. And then we both have Crazy Mason in our top 3. I mean, he's just a hard horse to get around. Even if he doesn't win, he makes that big late run every single time. I don't know if he's going to get a huge pace to run at, but I do think 7 furlongs is a good distance for him. 3 for 4 winning at that distance, or 1 for 2 winning at that distance, 3 for 4 winning at Belmont at Aqueduct. So, you know, that last, I don't know, 5-6 races, it's just been so incredibly consistent. Manny Franco stays aboard. Manny's doing really well to start this Belmont fall meet.
Definitely. I like this horse a lot on paper. It looks to set up nicely for him. Obviously, I have Scotland on top, but I believe this horse is going to run a really good race. And also his career best effort comes at Aqueduct. So that as well is something that stuck out to me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, let's go from Aqueduct to the other coast, and let's go to the grade 2, City of Hope. Let's go out to Santa Anita. They have 2 Challenge Series races on Saturday, 2 on Sunday as well. The morning lines are already out for these races, so that's always a lot of fun for the bettors. Morning lines should be out for Belmont at Aqueduct on Thursday. But listen, City of Hope, this is a Challenge Series race for the Breeders' Cup Mile, not the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, the Breeders' Cup Mile on the turf, going a mile, obviously on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. It's a short field, and the reason why is the number 3, Johannes, who is a very, very nice horse who we got to see up close and personal in that 4-star Dave. That was a disappointing trip that day, but he's a really good horse.
Don't even get me started. Definitely one of the most beautiful horses I've ever seen in person. That's for sure. And the ride, I mean,
not one of the most beautiful things you've seen.
Not one of the best rides I've ever seen. I think the horse was a little confused, and now he's back in his backyard. I think that he towers over the field. I mean, obviously, this is a nice field of horses that I got out here for this race for sure. But Johannes, I mean, he stands out, and I'm going to take him at even money for sure. He'd be a single for me in any sequence as well.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, he's such a nice horse. He's so good at Santa Anita. Perfect 7 for 7 on the turf at the Great Race Place. 4 for 6 at the mile distance. And listen, that 4-star Dave, important to remember, the ride was not great by Umberto Rispoli. But let's be honest, this was also the horse's first start in quite a while, from December until August. Now he's second back from that long layoff. You'd imagine the screws are pretty much so tight. Not all the way tight, because they're pointing toward the Breeders' Cup Mile, obviously. But he's going to be really ready to roll here, and I think he's going to be pretty tough to beat. Underneath, we both tried to go in a couple of different directions. I really like the number 5, Almendarez, 4, Phil D'Amato. Listen, Phil D'Amato on the turf at Santa Anita. Let's not try to get too cute here. But the problem is, this horse doesn't like to win out at Santa Anita. 0 for 5 on the turf out there. So more of a Del Mar horse in some ways. Likes kind of running there a little bit more. Does like the distance, 6 for 8 in the exacta. That's why I have him underneath. And honestly, outside of that Seabiscuit, he just doesn't really run bad races. So he is very consistent in terms of the numbers he runs, things like that. You have him third, I have him second, but obviously a formidable horse in this race as well.
Yeah, definitely looking at his form. I mean, he ran a really good race in this same race last year, the City of Hope, and he finished second to Johannes there.
Yeah.
So he makes a lot of sense. And then all of his other starts at Santa Anita have been off of a layoff.
Yeah.
Or maybe just not in the best of form. So to me, I think that he's going to run a good race. I have him third. I just tried to use a little bit of a bigger price in between a horse that I believe fits here. I mean, figures wise, certainly you get Mike Smith aboard.
Yeah,
horse draws to the outside. Yeah, Cabo Spirit has the outside post, really good speed. I believe that, this horse can sit a pretty nice trip and pick up second for sure. It's between the 5 or the 6 here.
Yeah,
I think figures wise, and this horse looks to sit a nice trip.
Yeah,
drew well.
I agree. Drew very, very well. And while he does have outstanding speed, he has shown the ability to pass horses. So he's not just a need to lead horse, but he often does find himself up there on the lead. Mike Smith, obviously outstanding jockey. And a horse that's won plenty at Santa Anita. He's a 6-year-old. He's experienced. You look at those last 6-7 races. I mean, 96, 96, 99, 97, 95. I mean, it's a metronome. He runs the same race, but that's good. I mean, you get a consistency there from him in that regard. Listen, I tried to get a little cute underneath, and I went to a horse that I've always liked, Scooby Quando. I like Scooby Quando going back to the John Battaglia in his third start ever. I like that horse because he had the Axeman, Lawan Machado, up on the mountain. You know how much I love the Axeman. And so this is a horse I've always been a big fan of. I always thought he was going to be ultimately better on turf, and that's where he went for Ben Colebrook and picked up a couple of wins against Optional Claiming Company and things like that. Goes to Michael McCarthy's barn and runs a 6th place finish off a long layoff at Del Mar. Now comes second start. I just thought it's an aggressive placement. And listen, maybe McCarthy's helping out with the racing office to get this one entered, and maybe it's nothing more than that. But I just thought this horse can sit a few different types of trips, is obviously going to take probably an 8 to 10 point step forward in the next start. But I thought, there's worse things doing than trusting in Michael McCarthy. Who knows what he's doing? So
I thought it was interesting. I mean, I don't know if it was an ownership group. I'm not super familiar with the horse.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was ownership change that resulted in Mike McCarthy getting the horse. But interesting that these are the hands he ends up in. I mean, I thought the same thing about this horse when I took a long look as I did about Final Boss, just both of them running without Lasix. I don't know if that's easy to trust. That was really my one knock on those two.
No, it's fair enough. And Scooby Quando, he won in debut way back in 2023 without Lasix and has run well without Lasix. And that's why I have him a little further underneath. But listen, going to be Johannes for both of us in this race. But let's get to the next one, which is the Goodwood, and that is a qualifier for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, this was a race maybe best defined by who is not in the race, and that is Nisos for trainer Bob Baffert, who many people said after he scratched out of the Pacific Classic, he was going to be pointing to the Goodwood. Well, he wasn't even nominated for the Goodwood, let alone going to it. So it ends up being a field where your morning line favorite is First Mission for trainer Brad Cox. You have Full Serano, who won last year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And you have a couple of other nice horses in this race, including Privman and Gaming and Nevada Beach. You went with a little bit of a big choice here with Nevada Beach as your top selection at a 12-1 morning line price. Talk to me a little bit about what brings you to this horse in this particular race.
I mean, I could be dead wrong, but I'm pretty excited at the opportunity to bet this horse around 12-1.
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Baffert, lightly raced horse. I know that his horses this year have not been running as well, but let's face it, he's in his backyard here, and he's putting in horses that he wants them to get into the Classic. I mean, there's no Nisos anymore.
Right.
This Nevada Beach, to me, first of all, it's a beautiful horse. Looking at that last race, watching the replay, I mean, he's just so much bigger than the rest of the horses that he was running against. Certainly took a step up, not that much, stretching out to 1 1/8. But I believe that this horse is going to benefit from the amount of speed that's present in this race. I mean, you have Full Serano. You have a few other horses here. Obviously, Gaming has speed as well. There's a few others. And I think that it could set up.
Has a lot of speed.
Absolutely. And it could set up pretty nicely for Nevada Beach if he just sits off the hip of a few of these and sits a nice trip. I mean, I'm excited about this horse. I love Omaha Beach as a side. And I love the progression of this horse. And then now we're seeing him first off the layoff, but look at the way that he's been working leading up to this race. I think this is very intentional for this horse to try to get into the Classic. I mean, he doesn't have anybody else now.
I would agree. This feels like if anybody's going to have a Classic horse, or for Bob, this feels like the horse that could potentially qualify. I have him third. I like him very, very much at 12-1. Would hardly shock me if he won this race. Would be included in my tickets if I'm playing that late pick 5, for sure. Has not run since that Los Al, but like you said, you look at those workouts: 112 and flat 6 furlongs, 124 and 17 furlong, a 59 and 4, 5 furlong. I mean, this horse is working and working and working.
He's
and Bob's
like basically racing.
basically.
So I think he should be in good shape coming in here. I'm excited about this horse. I mean, I don't know if I'm missing something that he's 12-1. I mean, if
I think he just has to move a little forward on the numbers.
But it's like he's not that far apart. I mean, if you look at what First Mission as well got last time out in 96. I mean, to me, Nevada Beach, all he has to do is take one step up here.
I agree. And First Mission, a horse that lost at Monmouth, and it's going to be interesting. You and I both faded First Mission from our top selections. I have a lot of respect for the Godolphin horse, for trainer Brad Cox. Florent Drew off the mount in favor of Paco Lopez. Now, hold the phone, because Paco Lopez is facing a 6-month suspension from HISA. So we're not even sure who's going to necessarily jockey this horse right now. But he's a very talented horse. But here's the thing. Over the last 5 years at Santa Anita, if you exclude Breeders' Cup races, Brad Cox 1 for 8 at Santa Anita. Doesn't have a ton of success out there when he ships. So something just to keep in mind.
I mean, this horse has never been there.
No. And I understand the rationale of putting him out there now and say, hey, listen, let's get a work out in California. Then we'll just keep him out there, run at Del Mar, that sort of thing for the Breeders' Cup. But I ultimately landed on full Serano. I know he's stretching out a little bit, but he ran so well in the Pacific Classic, going 1.25 miles, and just barely lost that day to Mixto. I think can get the 1 1/8 of the day. Second start off the long layoff. Looked phenomenal first time out, just toyed with company as your 1-9 favorite. Part of the reason I like him, notice the jockey, Juan Hernandez. Now, Bob Bafford's got a couple of horses in this race. Juan Hernandez rode Nevada Beach last time out. Juan Hernandez rode Priveman the last 2 times out. And the fact that Juan Hernandez has ridden full Serano before, but only once before, last time out. The fact that Hernandez says, I'm staying on full Serano, I don't know. That certainly the jockey has a lot of confidence in him going into this race.
He's a Breeders' Cup winner, and obviously not a Classic winner, but he won the Dirt Mile. It makes sense for him to want to lock in the ride on this horse if he gets in. The horses that Bob Bafford has, I mean, Nevada Beach, I believe, can win here, but and run well in the Classic, even not win nearly. But there's a few others in here for Baffert that would not make sense in the Classic in any which way, and I believe have no shot here. So it makes sense for him to want to take this mount. To me, I think that the horse is going to have a bit of company up front as well, and I just have my questions. I mean, at this distance, going 1.1 miles, I know that he ran going 1.25 miles in the Pacific Classic last year, but to me, I certainly have my questions. I mean, he was in the Dirt Mile last year as well.
Yeah, it's fair. And to be also fair, it's his first time running at Santa Anita. He's only ever run at Del Mar before in the United States. So listen, some questions to answer there with the top 2 choices. Like I said, I went with full Serano, who's a little bit of a better price in the morning line. We both like Nevada Beach. You are very high on that horse. I give you credit for picking that one up top. And I think that's kind of going to be the way those 3, I don't know about First Mission, but full Serano and Nevada Beach are going to be on my tickets for sure.
I agree. I wouldn't leave full Serano off mine.
No. Your dad might ask you about that too a little bit later. But listen, let's go to Sunday. Let's flip the page to Sunday and talk about the Zenyatta and then the Santa Anita Sprint Challenge, which are the other 2 Challenge Series races out at Santa Anita. Like I said, this is for Sunday. The Zenyatta Stakes. We won't make any comparisons to the Rachel Alexandra Stakes, taking place down at Fairgrounds. We won't get into that. Zenyatta was an outstanding synthetic horse, but this is an automatic. I know. I'm just playing for the comments, folks. All right. Listen, this is going to be an unbelievable race, and is an automatic qualifier for the distaff, going 1 mile and 16 for 3-year-old fillies and mares. Cavalieri, Richie, the 2 Bob Baffert horses. Cavalieri, the ever so slight favorite on the morning line. You and I both have that one as our top selection. The Cavalieri just quite simply has never done anything wrong. So it's hard to really go, well, I think she's going to suddenly falter because she just doesn't.
Definitely. And I mean, she's that figure that she got in the Beholder Mile, a 101, I mean, is certainly really impressive. And I'm excited to see her back. I don't know about you, but I kind of approach this race because, listen, in California, when you get a 5-horse field and 3 of them are Bafferts, the race is going to be run through Baffert. In most cases, if there's horses that aren't really up to par, which I believe about the 1 and the 2, they're not really on the same level. So at the end of the day, I thought about really which horse is he going to want to qualify for the distaff.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, I would imagine it's Cavalieri.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, it's interesting. Richie's a horse that won that Santa Maria 2-back at Santa Anita. And has run some very big figures, ran a 100, 102, 102, but lost to Cavalieri in that Beholder Mile, then goes and wins the Santa Maria, but then loses to Clement Hirsch and loses pretty easily by 5 lengths, decides to meet Beauty and Copian, go at a mile and a 16th. So now Copian's an outstanding horse, no disrespect there. And Richie's an outstanding horse, Chilean bred, but really is tremendous for Baffert. But I agree with you. I just think Cavalieri, I don't think we've gotten to the bottom of this horse. I mean, I think she could be the threat in that distaff. If people look at that distaff and they go Torpedo Anna, maybe with the spinster, we'll see what happens there. And, look at what ends up, maybe that, and that 3-year-old, and especially after the cotillion, that 3-year-old division is so unsettled that it really does feel very wide open after Anna. And Cavalieri could be the main rival.
I mean, that's been my fear for a little bit now, ever since the Beholder Mile. This is going to be the threat for Torpedo Anna. I'm not saying that there's horses in here that haven't run as good of races as she ran in the Beholder Mile. But she's a lightly raced horse that, like you said, we haven't gotten to the bottom of yet. And I believe that, he's going to want her to try to win this race. I think she would have a real shot, actually, in the distaff.
I agree. No, she's dangerous for sure. I got a little cute with a horse, La Kika. Poor trainer Doug O'Neill. I like saying La Kika. La Kika. Now listen, she is running. She's run on turf a bunch, but she's run on dirt, and she's a group stage winner and a Group 1 winner, grade 1 winner, I should say, down in Peru on the dirt. But she's already qualified for the Breeders' Cup. Here's the thing: she's already qualified for the Breeders' Cup because of that Clásico Pamplona last time out. And that's a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race. So she won that, and she's actually already there. So in some ways, I love the fact that the connections shipped her up and transferred her to Doug O'Neill, so she gets a race in North America before the Breeders' Cup. And I wish more South American horses did that. But I think La Kika's an interesting horse. Listen, is she good enough? We'll see. I don't know. But I just thought, she's 9-2 on the morning line. I think she's got a little bit of a shot. Hector Barrios is a very nice jockey. And I just see Cavalieri and Howen is so much better than everybody else. But listen, if you're just going to bet those two up top, it's going to be really chalky as an exacta. And I just figured, throw in a horse like this who might make a little bit of noise and who's a little bit of an unknown up there and who's been working out nicely leading up to this race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a 5-horse field, right? So there's not too many ways that you can get creative here. All I know is I don't like Howen. And then, this horse, I mean, it's really hard to judge.
It is.
La Kika, especially now coming over and handling the turf at Santa Anita. It's a big question mark, but a horse that, I mean, not the turf, sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the track.
Yeah,
I mean, she was running on the turf over at Santa Anita. So my point is I landed on a horse in third that has good experience over this track.
Won this race last year.
That's Sugarfish. And obviously the horse just fits in third. I don't like Howen for Baffert at all. And I think that this horse could very well pick up third for sure. Blinkers coming off, certainly interesting. Wonder if that also wakes her up a little bit.
Yeah, Jeff Mullins is dangerous out there for sure. So definitely one to keep in mind. And maybe an upset bid. But I think you and I both see the race running through those top 2 Bafferts, and we both lean a little bit towards Cavalieri there. Well, let's go to the final race of these Challenge Series races this week, which is the Santa Anita Sprint Challenge, which of course is a qualifier for the sprint, going 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And we're seeing the return to North American racing for Straight No Chaser, who is your morning line favorite, followed by Imagination and then Dr. Venkman. And again, you went with a little bit of a price here a horse that, I think is, I think certainly worthy of top consideration, which is, of course, number 5, Speedboat Beach. And one that, again, Bob Baffert in his own backyard could be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I believe the horse can be definitely very dangerous. I mean, if you just separate those last 2 efforts and just look at this horse's form, those 3 races as Santa Anita, clearly this horse loves Santa Anita.
Yeah.
I mean, ran 3 really good races. And now, you'd imagine that they want to get this horse into the sprint. So this is a good option to land on. Certainly fits figures wise and has really good speed. And I believe also can pass horses. So maybe he wires the field, or maybe he just rates right off the pace a little bit. But, I was surprised to see, I picked the horse before the odds came out.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. I mean, if he's taking money, it'll be a good sign. If not, I'd probably lay off of him a little bit, honestly.
Yeah, it's possible.
Just taking a shot.
Yeah, taking a shot. He's 3rd back from a long layoff. Listen, he didn't run from December 2023 to May 2025. So that's a long layoff. I do think you look at those first 2 races back, those are tough races to assess. You look at those previous starts, winning the Grade 1 Malibu, finishing 4th behind Elite Power Gunite and Nakatomi in the sprint, and then finishing 2nd to Dr. Shivel in this race 2 years ago. I think obviously those 3 figures just alone, let alone his debut, which was dazzling, that people remember, finishing ahead of Hijazi and Fort Bragg that day. That was a big effort. So those other efforts on dirt all fit. The fact that Baffert is putting bullets into this one in the morning also gives you a lot of hope. So definitely like Speedboat Beach. Think he's a super interesting horse. I have him 2nd. I'm fading Straight No Chaser. We both are. That first start back in North America is always a bit of a question mark. You just don't know what you're going to get with those horses. And listen, I think this is the definition of a prep race for Straight No Chaser. They're getting him ready for the sprint, and there's no need for him to be all the way cranked up for this race. It's about tightening the screws here, and I just think it's an opportunity to get past him. And Imagination is a horse that at 5-2 I just can't get excited about, and so I landed on Dr. Venkman as my top choice. And I don't love betting Rispoli in a dirt sprint race at all, but I just think this horse is super honest and super consistent. You look at those speed figures. No, you don't see any triple digits, but you also don't see anything in the 80s either. This horse just runs 91 to 99 basically every single time out. Gives you his A game, is coming off a win in the Pat O'Brien last time out at 7 furlongs, can sit just off the pace a little bit, and won from the inside rail last time out with Rispoli aboard. So there's a lot I like there about Dr. Venkman. He's a horse that I think can sit a few different types of trips, and I'm just going to take a shot with him at 3-1 as my top selection.
Yeah, certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, I should have this horse in my top 3, that's for sure. I mean, Dr. Venkman, if you're looking past the morning line favorite, which we both did here, I mean, there is a fear that Straight No Chaser doesn't return the same after going overseas, as there is with any horse that goes overseas. Certainly the first start back as well, like you were saying. I mean, the horse hasn't come back from anything like that before. So we'll wait and see. I'm going to try to beat him. But yeah, for me, I landed on Speedboat Beach, but Dr. Venkman fits. He's a very logical contender here.
Listen, it's going to be a lot of fun as we get through all these Challenge Series races. And Kaylie, you and I, we're going to be down at Keeneland next week for opening week. We got Torpedo Anna, who's got a new jockey. By the way, we're wishing best and quick recovery to Brian Hernandez Jr., certainly after a very scary spill at Churchill Downs. But we just found out from Kenny McPeak today, Flavian Pratt taking over the mount for Anna. That's going to be exciting.
Really interesting.
Yes, very interesting. I agree. And it's going to be a lot of great races. So we're going to be down there at Keeneland next week. We're going to be out at the Breeders' Cup, obviously, at the end of October, start of November, out at Del Mar. So we're going to be a lot of fun here. But thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Road to the Breeders' Cup. Make sure to check out all of our great content on NYRA Bets. For Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great and profitable day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.